and however you are listening, you are in for a treat. Today we have Andrew Spainhower, managing partner at McMullin Injury Law, and he has such an incredible story to share, from struggles as a childhood to unbelievable success as a personal injury attorney. And there's just a bunch of fun conversation. It flows freely the whole time. Make sure you listen to the end because there's some really heartwarming moments there. And I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Breck said that he asked you who Brett Harker is. You said it's Cody in a couple years. That's probably the nicest thing you've ever said about me. Andrew, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been excited. I'm hoping to win the moment.
Yeah, well, I think you will. Andrew and I actually both moved to St. George the same time. So it was my sophomore year, your junior year. Did you come in before school or during school?
I came in, we moved into town, St. George, just a couple weeks before school started. So I was there right to start junior year.
So we both moved in this summer before school started.
Yep.
Both coming from completely different places. I came from Wyoming. Andrew came from Iowa. You did have the leg up on me, being that you were of the religion of the community. So you had some advantages on me there.
That was an early advantage for sure.
Being LDS.
I was a lot more popular socially in Utah than I was outside of Utah.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you got to be one of many instead of the one of like only, I'm sure, in Iowa, or not a lot anyways.
Yeah, in Iowa, like the Mormon kid, you're like the weird kid.
Right.
You know?
How was that for you when your parents told you we're moving to St. George? Were you excited? Were you disappointed? Like, what was the emotions that you went through at that time?
So that was rough because when we moved from northern Utah to Iowa when I was 13, my dad did like the whole midlife crisis thing, like went to chiropractic school when he had five kids,
right?
Which is a really, tough financial decision, to do that. And so I hated Iowa at first, didn't want to go, loved it up in northern Utah. But by the time he gets done with school, gets a job out here and says, hey, we're moving, but the opposite end of the state, but back to Utah, it was no longer good news for me. Because I had really close friends in Iowa. You kind of, learn to love where you're at, and there's just great people out there. I had a close-knit group of friends and did not want to move. So I was bummed. And
James is still one of your really good friends today.
Yeah, James Onken. Yeah. He's the man. Yeah.
Shout out to James. So when your dad did that, went to school, so then that must have been hard on you guys as a family because you had no income, obviously, when you're in Iowa.
Yeah, that was rough. We were eating church cheese out there. It was pretty
church cheese. What's church cheese?
Just like when, my dad's a student, he got five kids. So my mom's, like working part-time as like a teacher's assistant. I mean, there was a couple of years that we were pretty destitute. My dad bounced around jobs a lot. So we had times when I was young when, income was fine, and but my parents loved us. We had our needs met.
Were you the oldest, or do you have an older sister?
I have one older sister and then three younger sisters.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how was it? I don't remember. I feel like you guys lived in a nice house in St. James. So did he do good at this chiropractic firm when you were here in high school then?
Yeah. I think he did. I mean, honestly, for us, getting him out of school and having a job was doing really well. And my dad was, doing the midlife crisis thing, switching careers like that.
What did he do before he was a chiropractor?
So he had worked for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the translation department. He would go translate the Book of Mormon into like European languages, put together teams overseas.
I didn't know that. That's wild.
And then but he had a degree in teaching. He'd been a school teacher, was like a junior high teacher, a basketball coach. So he bounced around and did a couple different things. But going back to school with five children is tough.
When he started his chiropractic thing, was it his business or did he go be a chiropractor for someone else?
No, he came in and got a job at an existing clinic here in St. George.
Wow. Okay. And so when you moved to St. George, how long did it take you to feel like you found your place in high school? Felt like pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quickly. So in St. George, I remember I made a couple friends like the first day that I came to school.
Do you remember who your first friend was?
Yeah, Spencer Worthington and John Tharp. These kids that walked in, and Spencer was drinking a Red Bull, and I remember John was giving him crap about it, saying that's, not very righteous.
Yeah.
And so I kind of chimed in, because I was getting a chuckle out of that, because in Iowa, kids are bringing water bottles with vodka into school.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, and they befriended me, and then when basketball got started, I was able to make more friends there, and kind of developed a really tight knit group that I'm still friends with a lot of those people. And just like you, there was a bunch of other move-ins that year too.
Yeah, because Breck moved in that year,
close,
Brian moved in that year.
Yeah.
A bunch of us happened to go to the school at the same time and share that experience. That's where I remember you first, is in basketball. I feel like my earliest memory of you was in the bus on a way to a basketball game and I think you were just talking shit to everyone.
that sounds pretty typical.
If I remember right, tell me if this story's true, but I believe that I was the only person on the sophomore basketball team to beat you in one-on-one when you were a junior.
And Dallas.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one.
Yeah. I remember getting Dale, remember getting Britton. Thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I think my very first friend, I think, was Britton. And then he took me, it was like, I moved in earlier in the summer. So we went to like the 4th of July festival at like the Sun Bowl.
Oh, cool.
And so I got to meet all those people there. And then TJ Hardy lived just 3 doors down from me. So I was really lucky. Like I got to go to school the first day and already, in fact, a funny story. TJ tells me like, oh, you got to take seminary.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, what's that? And he's like, it's like a free hour.
That's how they get you.
And I was like, oh, okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll do that. And so like like the bell rings, we go across the street to the seminary building. For those of you like myself who didn't know what seminary is, it's like a religious class. So no credit. And of course it was a Mormon religion. And so like we walk in and they give us like the Book of Mormon or whatever. And they say a prayer and I'm already like, TJ. What the hell is this? And he was like, oh yeah, this is what I told you. I was like, this is not what you said. And then so they're like, open up to Ephraim 1242. And I'm like looking for page 1246. Like, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I remember one time a kid was like, all right, Cody, you got to say the prayer. And I was like, oh no, I can't do that. And he's like, no, you have to. And TJ looked at him. He was like, he's not saying the prayer. But it was good. So I did it for a semester because I was like, well, I might as well learn like what's going on, but that was pretty funny. That was a good experience. But the best story so the very first day of lunch, we're walking across the crosswalk, like headed to Little Caesars or whatever. Yeah. Me, TJ, and Dallas playing sports, able to make some friends. And so Dallas and TJ were both really good at football season. 2 seniors drive up. I think it was Brock Sharp and someone else. And they're like, TJ, Dallas, get in the car, And they're like, sweet. And TJ's like, come on. Yeah. It's like Dallas goes around to this side, gets in the car. TJ gets in the car this side. And I'm like behind TJ about to go in and the light goes green and they drive away. And then I'm just standing there and all the cars are driving like, get out of the way, loser. And I'm just standing there like,
that's amazing.
This is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Like everyone's laughing like an idiot in the road, So I ended up going to Little Caesars with Josh Bowler. And
for some reason my mind immediately goes to Dante driving by and just throwing a soda in your face from out the window.
Wait, did that happen?
No, I just wish it did.
That's the first Dante mention on the podcast. That's exciting for him.
I hope he gets mentioned many more times.
23 episodes in, he got it. So Andrew and I, we've been friends. So that was what, like 2003?
Yeah.
So it's been 20 years. We've been friends now, which is pretty awesome. Really unique that we've got this incredible group of individuals that has been able to keep this friendship. So we were just barely in Park City last weekend with 12 of the 16 people in our fantasy football league.
Yeah.
Some people like Brett couldn't be there.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. It's lucky to acclimate quickly like that. I mean, for you to be able to make friends like over the summer.
Yeah,
I mean, it's St. George is an awesome place. Like I'd moved around so much growing up that I didn't want to leave. So by the time like I felt established in St. George, and then I left for a mission and was like, I want to come back. I don't want to go to college anywhere else. I want to be in St. George. And then even with later law school, like I want to be back in St. George kind of became like within a year of being here, like this is where I started telling people I was from and where I was making plans to try to live my life here. That's
interesting because I rebelled against it a lot in the beginning. And I think culturally it was so different than it is now. But I moved to Hawaii 6 days after graduated high school, came back, and then I went to Phoenix, was there for a few years, came back, and then it was like, this isn't working, went to Houston, came back. And it wasn't until I got back and got into hospitality and tourism that I finally like embraced St. George what it is. And honestly, there's nowhere I'd rather live now, nowhere I'd rather raise a family.
Awesome.
And which is interesting because I had such a great high school. Like looking back, it's not like I wish I didn't live here for high school. I'm so grateful I did.
Yeah.
I don't know. My life would have been much different had I lived in Wyoming. It was different because everyone there like went to college. I guess some of our friends did, but I feel like my career trajectory would have been so different had I not been in St. George. And we're so lucky to have this group of individuals who all are successful in their own right and really have all done it different ways. I mean, not many people in that group share a profession.
Yeah, totally.
It's all very scattered.
And I feel like everybody went to college here. I think that our world that we expose ourselves to, like you didn't. And so to you, your mind just gravitates. It's like when you're looking at buying a Jeep, you just see Jeeps everywhere, right?
That's so interesting
to me. Like, and I don't know I have no idea what the stats are, but in my mind, like it seems like, oh yeah, everybody went to Dixie State like after high school, or they went up to BYU, or they,
Yeah, I wonder how many people on our 16 in our fantasy football league, how many people have a degree? What do you think the number is really quick?
I think most of them, 12.
Wow. Okay, so let's do the math. So college, no college. You college, me no college. Breck no college. Brian Nell did not graduate.
He did.
He did. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, college.
Absolutely.
Mitch Fry, no. Oh,
yes.
He did. He played sports. Did Blair Fry?
Yep.
No shit.
Yep.
Did Derek Taylor didn't?
No, I don't think so.
It would be a fraudulent degree, I'm sure.
No.
Did the Shones go to college? Connor did for sure. He has an MBA.
Both of them.
No way. Wow, you were completely right. And
Ferd
then
too.
Ferd, he didn't graduate, did he?
Yeah.
That seems hard.
I went to college with Ferd and Brian.
Okay, so Ferd is in. Griffin Shone, you said, is in?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Man, so the only people like did go to college were me, Breck, and Derek.
Yeah, that's good.
Because Casey Nettle did?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Tom Whitehead, definitely, because he played sports. Zach Scott did not.
Zach Scott did not. I think my 12 out of 16, I might hit it on the head.
Yeah, who are we leaving out?
Let's see. Chase did,
because he's a dentist.
How many are we at? Are we missing anybody?
Right now. Well,
McCrae did.
McCrae did. Yeah. So, I mean, right. That's 12 of, yep. Wow. Shocking.
Right.
You just shook my whole worldview there.
I'm sorry to do that to you.
See how fast that can happen? Okay. So you talked a little bit we talked about high school. Then you decide to go on a mission. You go to where?
Florida, which is a good draw for me.
You didn't want to go international?
No.
If I win, I would so much rather go learn a language.
I've heard you say that because I've watched some of these episodes, but yeah, for me, like that would have been just the just cursed death knell. Going on a mission is hard enough. That is a big ask of a 19-year-old, and there's just tremendous pressure from the community. You just kind of have to go. To be loved and accepted amongst your peers. So like, it's a tough spot to be in. And so for me, like to go to, have to go learn a language is just a whole nother element, and like not have toilets or whatever, like you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
So for me, Florida was like, please. Yes. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. It was beautiful. I loved it. Good experience, super hard work, but like made some lasting friendships and grew a lot, as a person. It was cool.
Do you think your time at G4G and doing like the bulwark stuff, do you think you were better at that because of the mission?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely teaches you to, face rejection and be okay with it and start sharpening some sales skills for sure.
How many baptisms did you do?
Not a lot, a few.
Really?
Yeah. Florida. People.
Which part of Florida were you in?
Tampa, but I spent a lot of my time like out in the trailer parks, like in the middle of the state, like segregated little towns.
That's where they want you.
Yeah, literally like living in trailers some of the time.
You lived in a trailer in Florida?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like baptism rates inside the United States are nowhere near like international missions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, South America, like you're going to baptize 10 to 1 as like a stateside typically.
Interesting. So you had more or less than 5 baptisms?
That I would say like I found that person and convinced them that this was the one and only true living church and put them in the water. A couple, like two people.
One a year. That's a lot of work.
It's just like with sales though. Like when you're in an area and a conversion happens and a baptism happens, you're kind of like tick. You can't like you're a part of it too.
I'm a part of it.
Yeah. No, not a lot.
Okay, so when did you know then that you wanted to go to school, and when did you know you wanted to be a lawyer? And why?
Man, so as far as just wanting to go to college, grew up just ingrained in me. Like
you were always going, no matter what you were going.
For sure. That's just was like natural stepping stone in life. It wasn't even like my mind never even considered a time when I wouldn't go to college. To be honest, my dad is highly educated, and pushed that really hard. We were like,
did you get good grades in school?
Yeah,
you did. Okay, I can't remember.
We were pretty tight, like conservative family. We studied hard. We get A's. My little sister was valedictorian, Dixie High. Yeah, we were a studious family for sure. So college was always in the cards, but I didn't want to leave St. George, so I went to Dixie State at the time, now Utah Tech, got a degree in communications, and while there...
Okay, so you got a 4-year degree from Dixie.
Yes, sir.
Communications.
Yeah.
And you did communications, why? Because it's the most general?
Actually, no. In the end, yes. So it started out because I was like, well, what do I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted to be like a sports broadcaster because I'm so passionate about sports, and was like, well, I'm not going to make it as an athlete because although you remembered that I used to brag about how I beat all these guys in one-on-one, the reality is within a few years of that, most of those guys would trash me. I was not an excellent athlete, but I love sports.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I also like to talk and argue, and, like sports broadcasting is my thing. So they had a track for that at Dixie State, and I started doing that, and I got, I don't know, a little ways down the line and realized that that's basically like trying to be a professional athlete.
Yeah,
like
your odds of making it
not a great career path.
What's interesting is like First Take and those type of shows didn't exist at that time. That's where you would have been great.
Yeah. I wish I could have been 10 years older and tried to get something like that off the ground.
Okay,
No,
so then you realize while you're in school, like, man, the odds of this, like having, like, providing for a family are very slim.
Yeah.
Were you with Mallory at that time when you had that realization?
Yeah. So had kind of started to have that realization on my own. And then when I started dating my now wife, Mallory, she was definitely a part of it because she had a brother who was an attorney. So it definitely
and she comes from a very successful family. So there's pressure going into a family like that of you better figure out how to provide a certain quality of life.
Totally. And she has 3 older brothers, but one older brother was an attorney, and it just made it seem suddenly more palatable and realistic because I could talk with him and pick his brain, and he was like, oh yeah, do it. He's kind of been a mentor for me. And so it started to seem more real. So I stayed in communications, but just switched away from all like the TV classes and just did more of the general stuff. Because for law school, you can get really any 4-year degree and apply to law school.
Wow. I did not know that you really didn't know you wanted it. And that's how it all came about.
I mean, as a kid, like I thought it was awesome because The Rainmaker with Matt Damon, like John Grisham books, like I loved that stuff so much, like being able to help the little guy. Even going to law school, I didn't want to go to law school to become an attorney. I wanted to go to law school to become a personal injury lawyer, which is what I do, which is pretty rare, actually. Most people that go to law school, they don't know what they want to do or what they want to practice.
So how did you choose that? How did you choose to be a professional or personal injury attorney? So
kind of for a couple reasons. One, like those influences of John Grisham books and movies like The Rainmaker, but also so with most fields of law, people don't really have access to good legal help because they can't afford it. Yeah. Attorneys are expensive, and they should be. They're really valuable. But for a lot of people, like they don't have the money to go pay $300-$400 an hour to get good legal help, and so they rough it on their own. And for me, like injury law, it's based on a contingency fee because it's for people who a week ago didn't even want or need an attorney. Yeah. And so you're able to come in and say, look, I'm going to partner with you. We're going to do this as a team. And if we get it to go the right way in the end and we get you a settlement from the insurance company, then I get paid as just a piece of what I get for you.
So you only get paid if they get paid.
Yes. So it makes it a lot more fun because you can help people who, without that type of model to pay, wouldn't be able to get any help at all.
Yeah.
So you can take
It's really good that exists because otherwise people would be getting in accidents and they would just say, there's nothing I can do.
They would do nothing. Yeah. Which like in Southern Utah, a lot of them do nothing anyway because in Southern Utah, we hate lawyers and we trust
Yeah. They made a
companies.
joke about it at the Rise Summit yesterday. Someone made a joke about a personal injury attorney.
That's just every
Why do you think
part
that
of
is?
my life. We're super conservative. Also, we're a little confused. We don't so we are really close to Vegas and we want to be so different from them because they're so scummy that like you drive through Vegas and every billboard's a personal injury attorney. Yeah. And so like we don't even have billboards, our firm. We're the biggest firm at what we do in Southern Utah. We don't have a billboard up at all. And
is that because of that?
Yeah, a lot of it is we've been really late to the game on putting those up is because people just hate it in Vegas, and we want to be so different from there in Vegas. They love attorneys. They don't trust insurance companies. And in Southern Utah, we're opposite. We don't want a handout. We don't want something from nothing. A lot of people get hurt in car accidents, don't even go see the doctor. Yeah. They just live with it. Right. So they're definitely not going to call a lawyer because
that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. There's 100,000 of you. Yeah. So like, that's my target audience. That could be tough to convert, Yeah.
Spencer's just closed just recently. Something like that. Like last week, he finally got a settlement, which is awesome for him. I mean, that was a terrifying, tragic thing. I mean, oh gosh, unbelievable. Okay, so Mallory's brother helps you decide that that's the path you want to go. So you finish your degree at Dixie State, and then how did you get to ASU? What did that look like?
So I applied all over. and I got waitlisted at BYU in Utah. I was trying to go. Like,
Is that where you really
States,
wanted to
cheaper.
go?
Yeah, just because it's close to here. I just wanted to be close to here. There's not a law school in St. George. I didn't really want to go to Vegas for whatever reason. That'd be the closest one, but I did get into Oregon. I thought I was going to be a duck.
Oh, that's cool.
We went up there and visited and drove around Eugene and looked at some apartments. And I remember walking into this one just crappy, just dilapidated apartment, and like people are just smoking weed out in the hall.
Yeah.
And like we walk in and look at it and walk out and get back to the car, and Mallory just breaks down crying. She's just like, I can't live here. You know, it was a major culture shock.
Yeah.
For me too.
And you guys are married now at this time?
Yes. But like, especially for her, she's grown up in one home here in St. George, and
Right.
St. George is a pretty
you
nice
moved a
little
bunch.
protected
She
bubble.
hadn't. Yeah.
So I ended up getting into ASU. And so we're like, you know what? We got to go check it out. Let's check out ASU and compare, because I really thought that we were going to Oregon. So we flew back to St. George, slept the night, drove to ASU in the morning, checked it out, and switched. So
Wow. Wasn't Xavier at one point in the running for you too, or some school back in Philadelphia?
what was I looking at back there?
Villanova?
Temple,
Oh,
Syracuse,
Temple, yeah.
Syracuse. There's a couple back
Yeah.
east that I was looking at. ASU ended up being it was the highest ranked law school of anywhere I even applied, higher than BYU in Utah.
Oh,
For
wow.
whatever reason, I got in, and not only that, I was waitlisted initially. They bumped me in last second. Like I found out the news that I got bumped in while I'm up in Oregon. So it's like feeling like
Oh, wow.
your universe or
Yeah.
God, whatever's
Yeah.
happening. Right? It was
The universe
like a
for
big
sure.
moment.
Big sign.
Yeah. So
Especially for Mallory, because, and I can relate to that because Megan also grew up here. And when there was different positions for me to apply to be promoted, Phoenix made the most sense because it's like, it's as close to St. George as you can get without being St. George. Same climate,
Yep.
same like general culture, and also a 6-hour drive.
Yep.
So I had that same like decision that you did of like, okay, this could work. And this won't be the same culture shock for Megan as it would be if I took a position in New York or something like that. you know?
Totally. It's like a St. George with like a few million people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it was great. And law school was awesome. I loved it. I wanted to come back here for my career. I wanted to do personal injury law. And that was a little daunting because, you know, there's not a ton of firms that just specialize and only do that.
And you were really set that you wanted to be in St. George.
Yeah.
And it's a hard place to create a career for yourself, right?
Yeah, it can be. And it's gotten so much better. I mean, it's grown so much in the last 10 years, but yeah.
So I want to tell a couple of the audience some of the stories within inside of that realm, right? So first off, you didn't have any help with school, right? Did you get scholarships, or did you just get like grants, or how did you pay for like the Dixie portion of your schooling?
So somehow with Dixie, I was getting like Pell Grants.
Yeah.
I got the Fire and Ice scholarship because I mean I was broke.
Yeah.
So like that's why, you know, these days like I try to give back to Fire and Ice and stuff because
Yeah.
I was a recipient of that.
Well,
You know, that's a
and-
need-based scholarship, not like an earned like merit scholarship.
Right.
But yeah, I had Pell Grants and just struggled my way through. I worked, you know, jobs during that time, but not making a lot of money.
Well, because you and I just kept crossing paths, right? So you ended up working at Wireless Advocates with me, and I remember we had to have a polo without a logo on it. And your first day, you came with like a Volcom logo, and you're like, "Dude, I'm sorry, I can't buy a non-logoed shirt until I get my first paycheck."
Yep.
You know, and so I think for people listening, because the Andrew they see today, I want them to really understand how hard it is to become the Andrew sitting in the chair today. You know, like it's not easy. It certainly by no means was given to you, right? And I think part of your success is probably driven from that desire to not be in that space. And so there was that, right? So you got through school, and then when you went to ASU, you guys got a loan, right?
Yes. Yeah. Took out student loans to get through ASU. And people around me, like I had a friend that had gotten an ASU a year ahead of me. He put in such a good word for me that not only did they bump me off the wait list, but then when I went and visited, I basically just asked him, "Hey, can you give me a little bit of a scholarship?" And they did.
No
to
way.
Close me. Yeah. Cause it was like the week before school started.
That's important too. You just got to ask, because you never, the answer is always no if you don't ask.
Yep.
Who was that, Norm?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Stephen Vincent Norm. And then my father-in-law also, when I got married, you know, gave us some financial help too. So now I'm getting, you know, some boosts, and people around me really have provided a path really the whole way. But yeah, we went through school, taking student loans. I did work jobs in school.
When I want to share that story too, because there's a couple things that I thought you guys did that were super commendable. One, Mallory went to work.
Yeah.
Right. And she worked a full-time job, and she really provided for you guys. She was your provider, right? Until we got, so you did the door-to-door pest control first before G for G, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were both living in Phoenix together, and you started doing door-to-door pest control. For the listeners, Mitch was just on talking about that, and you did pest control before him. Yeah. Right? Because they were doing alarms or whatever when you were doing
alarms
pest
that
control.
summer. Yeah. So I used to call Mitch and Brian at night and be like, yeah, I got 7 sales today. It's so easy. And it's funny. It's like you were asking Mitch, what sets you apart, and he's like, work ethic. Nobody outworks me.
Yeah.
For me, it's the opposite. I mean, I was knocking doors like 3 hours a day. It's 120 degrees.
I did it with you once. It was the worst thing ever. It was so
worst
terrible.
ever. So I would like lay out by the pool all day and tan and read books. And I remember I was reading Greatest Salesman in the World. You read that?
That's a great book. Who's the author of that?
What, Ogmandino?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a great book.
Anyway, it's like it like hypnotizes you to like love people.
Yeah.
So people are knocking on these doors, and I'm like just drinking the Kool-Aid on that book. So like I'm there because I love you, and like the pest control that I have to sell is the best thing for you.
Yeah, you need it for your survival.
So sales were just falling down, and that. Well, honestly, before that is when I started realizing that I was pretty naturally gifted at sales, honestly, was when I got a job working for you at Wireless Advocates. Yeah. I had kind of hit rock bottom while I was going to Dixie State because I'm bouncing around doing these jobs. I worked with Breck when you had the whole feud with Breck and you had your other store and all that. And then I ended up getting a job at the Buckle because I'm like, hey, employee discount 40% off, because back then.
You got to look good.
Success when you're in college means like dating,
Yeah.
So you got to have clothes because I can't afford the cars or anything else. And I did buy a car and it got burnt to the ground, So like,
I remember you telling that story. You felt like nothing was going your way. Like everything was a struggle. You walk out and your BMW's blown up.
Yeah. I finally buy this used BMW, like 325, a little silver. Yeah. And there was a serial arsonist in St. George.
Wasn't it someone who went to school with? Didn't he end up getting caught? It was some kid who went to Dixie with us.
I don't know who it was. Honestly, I forget. But it burnt the car to the ground, And then meanwhile, I had just been working at the Buckle, and I get fired for misuse of employee discount because I can tell. That's the only reason I'm working there is because I want 40% off on like mech jeans, with like the bedazzled on the butt, And they find out that I'm buying clothes for me and Baldwin and Thomas and whoever else.
Are you selling them to your friends for a profit?
No. I was just
letting them get in on the
letting
goods.
them get access to it. Yeah, I was not like that back then. Today there'd be a big markup, but so I get literally like, can I see you in the back at the Buckle? We're gonna have to, made the decision of we're gonna have to let you go.
And you can't be making a lot of money at the Buckle anyways.
No. I mean, I don't know. Back then it was probably $10 an hour.
Right. Yeah.
And then you had called and said, hey, I'm doing this thing at the Costco booths. Come and sell phones part time. And ended up coming over and doing that. And that was honestly the first job where I felt like, I'm actually better than some folks at selling stuff.
Yeah, right.
Can relate to people faster and close people faster for whatever reason.
And that ended up being a great group you guys had because I got promoted shortly after you started. Mm-hmm. So then you had Zach, you, Casey, and Tom, right?
Yeah.
What a fun group of dudes to work with.
It was amazing. And I remember, and I'm going to school at the time, so I'm just part-time. And then somebody had left, and Zach was the manager at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember he sat me down at his house one night and he's like, you need to step up and take the full-time job. And I'm like, full-time job? Like, I'm not... I'm just a part-time guy, because I'm used to making $10 an hour, just going to school. And it's like, no, you can do it. Like Zach's like talking to me, like convincing me to like believe in myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and it's only to work like 32 hours a week.
Yeah.
But
right.
I felt like, well, I'm going to school. How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Thank heaven, I listened to Zach and ended up doing that. And, I just had a reign of terror statistically on sales wise. They were like the guy, I was outselling everybody in the district, and they would have like nicknames for me. And
was
stuff.
Mike
was
Davies
awesome.
your? Yeah. Oh, and Ferd worked there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that gave me a big boost of confidence, which honestly like helped me in other things later. So that ended up
that's
being
really
like
cool.
a huge opportunity for me.
So then you did that. Then you did the pest control, and then how much money were you making like in a summer doing your pest control in Arizona?
Right about 40,000.
That's phenomenal, right?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
And that was, year one not really year one on the doors. I tried to do alarms for a year. I should have went with a bigger, more established company. I went with friends that I still love to this day, but they just didn't have like the
ecosystem built for you to
big
succeed.
Group where we all drink the Kool-Aid and motivate each other. And I needed that. I was a 21-year-old kid, so my first real go at summer sales was with the pest control during law school and worked out really well. So I was super pumped and I was like, I'm going to do it year 2, come back and make even more. But then I ended up getting introduced to Anthony and his paralegal, my now partner, Anthony McMullin, that the firm's named after. His now paralegal, he had just left another law firm in St. George, started his own firm.
Your guys' office was like behind Applebee's at that time, right?
Just this tiny little hole in the wall office. And his paralegal, it was just he and her, was pregnant and needed maternity leave over the summer. And my brother-in-law, Cameron, introduced me to Anthony when I was home over Christmas break, was like, hey, Anthony'd hit him up, let's do lunch or whatever. And he's like, well, can I bring along my little, kid brother, this loser in law school that wants to do personal injury law. So anyway, Anthony and I end up hitting it off. And he's like, yeah, if you want to come, work as a receptionist, basically, paralegal, and come learn the ropes with me, I'll pay you $12 an hour and come do that over the summer. So after my second year of law school, I gave up, doing summer sales, trying to make another 40, 50 grand, and instead went and did that.
What relationships and connections are so important. That changed the trajectory of your life. So then what's really cool, so Mallory's working this whole time, really helping provide, you find ways to bring in income. And then you and I are both fortunate enough to have G4G kind of fall in our laps.
Yeah.
And so for the listeners who don't know what that is, we would sell subscriptions to the Wall Street Journal, $12 for 12 weeks, $1 a week, and we'd give them an awesome. What do you give out in Arizona and ASU? Hoodies?
Hoodies, a lot of hoodies.
Yep, hoodies.
Even with how hot it was,
Andrew ended up getting, so we had done BYU football, Zach and I, and then we ended up getting UNLV basketball. And at that time, Andrew did you both have ASU and Arizona?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and Arizona was really good.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so Arizona Wildcat fans would pay $12 for like a piece of crap that has an Arizona logo on it.
Yeah, right.
And so we would go down, sign up for the paper for 12 weeks, it's $12, and we'll give you this free item. Well, the item looks like it's worth like $50.
Yeah, we used to always say get a $60 hoodie for $12.
It was just shooting fish in a barrel. So we would literally I would run down onto the floor, like on the court before the game, and the student section would be there early and be like, hey guys, have you seen this? $60 hoodie for $12 up there. All you got to do is take the newspaper for free for 12 weeks and shut it off, and they would just come up in droves. So they would just get in lines and just sign up one after another. I mean, it was crazy. So I ended up making a bunch of money doing that, the spring of my last year of law school.
I mean, what an incredible, you made as much money doing that as someone who works a full-time, really good job.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I think I ended up making like $25,000 in April of that year in a month.
Isn't that wild?
It was nuts. Yeah, and that was eye-opening for me, but then also was like, oh crap, some of my good friends are going to do this full time.
Yeah, because that's when Zach and I moved to Houston to send it.
It's the easiest money I've ever made, and it's really fun. It's perimeter sales, which I'm really good at sporting events. I mean, it's a
for
job
you and
designed for it.
For you and I, it's like literally the job that they said, this is what you were built for.
100%. So then now I've got another, moment where I've got to, question geez, is this legal career right for me? Cause I'd already questioned that after my first year of law school, because I've been, straight A's my whole life without trying. And then suddenly you go to law school and I'm getting C's and I'm like, I'm not smart.
I didn't know that.
I swear I was brilliant, but suddenly all these kids are smarter than me, It was the first time that I experienced that. And so had to kind of go through that decision again. I remember my father-in-law sitting me down and kind of talking me through it and was like,
because you were really contemplating coming with us or taking a baseball team and building out your own, doing your own thing.
I was, yeah. And Anthony,
and you hadn't graduated yet, right?
Not quite. I was
graduating
your last
summer.
Yeah, I was graduating now. And Anthony had just offered me a job to come back as an associate attorney. It was still just him and one staff, but I would come on and work under him.
What year was that? That would have been
2014.
Okay.
So, and I think I was making, he was offering $60,000 a year or something flat salary. Whereas doing the newspaper thing, I would have been making $250,000 probably.
That,
yeah, at least. So that was really hard, but I was like, this is what I want to do.
And $60,000 in St. George at that time was as good as it gets.
Totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When I was coming out of school, a lot of attorneys weren't even finding jobs. Yeah. Especially in 2012, it was worse. It had started getting better.
Yeah.
To where people were starting to find jobs, but it was nowhere near what the, market for attorneys is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I ended up deciding I want to be back in St. George. I'm going to do the long-term play, and I'm going to try to build something with Anthony. I remember, talking with him about the job opportunity. He was scared, hesitant to bring me on at all and have to commit to pay an employee. He's just a small little shop. And I was like, look, I want to be one day like the biggest personal injury attorney in Southern Utah. Like that's my dream. The only way I can feel like that is if I'm a partner. And so if that's not ever going to work for you, don't bring me on. Cause I don't want to come for a short-term play. Like if this is my thing, like I want to do it with you forever. Yeah. And so I want that upside, to be there. And fortunately ended up growing a ton, and he made good on every promise, and it, ended up being the right decision.
And so for your partnership in the beginning with you and Anthony, like what was your role in the beginning? Is that when you started like, okay, I'm going to do the marketing, I'm going to jump into that, I'm going to figure out how to get us found, or was it like, I'm taking cases? How did you, like, what was the value you gave Anthony in the beginning?
Both. So initially it was just, hey, run these cases, but just my mind, is just naturally gravitates towards how do we grow this thing? How do we attract more new clients and compete more in the industry in Southern Utah as a personal injury attorney? And so I, would get sucked to that side more and more and more.
Yeah.
I ended up, a good, kind of a mentor of mine, a good friend of mine, Corey McNeil, is like an SEO expert, just super, super smart guy. And he was like willing to like go to lunch with me and kind of take me under his wing and teach me things to where I was writing articles like during my third year of law school for Anthony's website.
Oh, wow.
Before I, even had the job offer, trying to build this thing, and attract cases to whatever we could do. And so was working on it that spring. And then when I got started as a full-time attorney and passed the bar, that always, just became a part of my work week. I was doing a little bit of everything. I'd spend a lot of time building the website, but I was also, helping clients running cases.
Did you pass the bar on your first try?
Yeah.
Was that hard?
So not for me, because there's two different versions of Andrew. So the Andrew that's sitting here now is the regular Andrew. But the guy that took the bar was Adderall Andrew. So that guy was brilliant. So when I, was an average student in law school,
yeah,
I started looking around being like, why are these, these guys are so smart. They can read for hours, and I've always been like, I get distracted easy, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, started taking Adderall, and it just changed the trajectory of my life big time. It, like in school, I was an average student. I get on Adderall, take the bar. I called around to like friends. I got the highest score on the bar of like anybody that I knew, even kids that were like brilliant and got recruited to these huge law firms. So me, like my mind, for whatever reason, with a little bit of Adderall in it, became like a whole.
You're like limitless.
Game. Yeah. It was like Bradley Cooper. Yeah. Totally.
So for the listeners, is that a cautionary tale? Like, do you?
So in the end, Adderall will enhance your life and help you accomplish whatever dream you have, and it will result in a like car fire. It will result in just disaster. I was on it for like 10 years. It ended up being like a major detriment to my mental health.
Yeah, it got bad for you.
So bad. Yeah.
I didn't know if you'd want to talk about that.
Yeah, it can be super anxiety inducing. I have no problem talking about it. I almost like ruined my whole life. I was just totally in a bad place mentally and couldn't figure it out and had to get off it, and tried to wean off it forever, and finally went cold turkey like 2.5 years ago. Haven't had one since.
So interesting question then is, if you could go back and take Adderall again, would you?
Yeah, I had to. As it changed my life, and it changed the life for my family.
Yeah, and I guess 60 years of a great life for 3 years of chaos is a good substitute.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'd pay for 3 years of struggle to have.
Yeah. Had it blown up in catastrophe and like cost me my marriage, it would be the other way. But because I barely scraped through and survived it, and now feel like my family's in such a good place.
Yeah.
I probably would go back and do it again, as much as that sucked, just to sit down. Yeah. I remember Mallory taking me, going to dinner one night and just looking me in the eyes and telling me like, you're different. Like you're not the same. You're not there. It was terrible. Yeah.
It was scary watching on the sidelines as your friend. Like I remember having those similar conversations with you, like, dude, we got to get this under control. Like,
yeah, it was rough. I spent several years like waking up like to the sound of a gun in my mind, like go, and like my, a little bit of caffeine and Adderall, and I could just accomplish a week's worth of work in a day. So I'd go to work for a week and I would accomplish, 5 weeks of work. And so our firm was just like, just growing.
Yeah.
Because it was, we had 5 employees inside one for a while there.
And do you think you needed Adderall in the sense of like what it was intended for? Like, did you actually need it, or was it just like an enhancer?
Yeah, I don't know. So like I meet all the criteria for proper diagnosis of ADHD.
Okay, so
totally.
It's not like
if you go down on paper, of what is a doctor like looking at as far as do you have a ADHD diagnosis or not? 100%.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yes.
I'm driving to Park City yesterday. Your knee was just shaking. Like,
yeah, and that's still now. I mean, my hands are vibrating while we're sitting here talking, and I get super distracted and off on tangents. That's been one thing that's great about my partners. Honestly, is that we're very different. And like Anthony is like a steady hand. Like he doesn't have these ups and downs that I have. So as a guy to build a business, perfect. Like that's why people are drawn to him.
Yeah, you want a partner who has different strengths than you do.
100%. Yeah.
That's what's great for Breck and I is he is so chaotic and such a risk taker where I'm so conservative. There's many things I would have said no to that he forces us to say yes to, you know, but then with that chaos, you get chaos, you know, but that's really the partnership that you want. You want your partner to be different than you.
Sure.
So talk about where your law firm's at now. So started out just you and Anthony and like an assistant, and what are you guys now?
So now we've got 21 employees. We have 7 attorneys. We're kind of we're positioned as Southern, the leading personal injury law firm in Southern Utah. And that's, what I'm honestly like kind of living my dream.
How cool is that?
It's awesome. It's the people that I work with are amazing. We ended up, during those early years of growing, grinding, we started to get to where the workload, even with the medication, I couldn't keep up, you know? And so we started needing to hire, and one of the smartest things that we ever did, we hired attorneys that were better attorneys than us. It's like 2 that are now partners, Nate Langston and Keegan Martineau. Those guys are brilliant. Yeah,
you've said really good things about them, like just when you've talked about it with me.
They're incredible. They're amazing attorneys. They're who I would want as my attorney for my family, not myself. And so, by teaming up with these people where we all have these different strengths, it's led us to a really good place to where I feel like we are, a resource for people that get in car accidents in Southern Utah or get hurt in some other way. Like with the team that we have in place, like we can help get people the objective that we need.
And so for people listening who don't really know what you do or looking, maybe they've been in a car accident or someone who is your ideal client, like what advice do you have to someone who just doesn't understand that process at all?
Yeah. So most people, everybody that calls us, it's their first time hiring an attorney.
Yeah.
And they're always they're talking to me like they're calling a prostitute. They're like, I've never done this before. Don't think less of me. It's like, well, I am the prostitute, so I'm not going to think less of you. But so they're like ashamed, they don't want like their wife to hear or something. But people, the truth is we help people get insurance recoveries after car accidents. That's really what personal injury
because insurances are going to do everything that they can to not pay out. That's their objective.
100%. I mean, an insurance company, it's a business. They want to turn a profit. Well, as an insurance company, the way that you make profit is you bring in more in premiums and you pay out less in claims, right? And so when you get in a car accident, you inherently have this enemy out there at the insurance company who their direct objective is to save money for their company by not giving it to you. Yeah. And so even if they're the nicest person ever, most of these insurance adjusters are probably nicer folks than I am. It's just that is their job. And so most people just don't realize, and they'll just settle their case for nothing, or they'll never get anything at all, or they won't even get proper medical treatment. They just don't know what to do. How do I get my car fixed properly? Do I get a rental car? Where do I go for treatment? How do I get bills paid? They just have these problems.
Know what to do.
Yeah. And like anybody would, I wouldn't, except for now I've done it 1,000 times, right? So a personal injury attorney, really what they are is just your teammate to just go through that series of issues with you and make them all go your way, just to be on your side and make sure that the insurance company because all we can get for people is what's fair and reasonable under Utah law. We can't just make up some number in the sky. Yeah. The insurance company's job is to save their money, so by not giving you what's fair and reasonable. And so, we stand with the client and just make sure that they get paid out fairly, and it's awesome because you get people who could really use some help. Sometimes life's already hard.
Yeah.
You're already struggling.
Well, I know you've told me some devastating cases you've worked on, with deaths and things like that of kids. And so it's that's already such a tragic and terrible experience.
Yeah. And you don't, nothing that we can do for them can bring their family member back. So there's no way to truly be made whole. But all the law can do for these people is we just make sure we get them the maximum amount of money possible to try to help with the financial side of things. Because if you have a terrible thing happen in your family, it's going to be terrible anyway. But when we end up handing some single mom a check for 200 grand, after she goes through something hard,
helps her get her life back on track.
Yeah, it's just a lot better than going through the terrible thing and then getting nothing, right?
Yeah.
So it's better than nothing, and money's the only tool the law has to try to make these things right. We don't have a time machine to undo these terrible things, and so we just try to take the stress away, make it easier, and get them a check.
So we talked about car accidents, but what other things exist where you can help people?
The other most common ones would be like dog attacks and work injuries. Yeah, I'm scared of dogs now. It's like when I'm reading police reports all the time about little kids that the neighbor's dog bites them in the face, and so it's just like when you watch CSI all the time, you think your neighbor's a murderer.
Yeah, right.
I'm super, and I'm kind of high anxiety anyway, but I just think everything's dangerous.
Yeah, you do.
I tape the corner of my granite countertops at home so my kids can see it easier so they don't bonk their heads and things like that. Everything's to me is scary.
Yeah, I remember. I'll never forget. We were at one of the parks behind Hidden Valley with you and Mallory and the kids, and there was 14-year-old golden retriever that was
terrifying.
Only had a couple months left to go, and it was barely hobbling along, and you were like, Fitz, get away from the dog.
I remember that godless marauding creature. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Are you
Can't
ever
be too careful.
Is your household ever going to have a dog, do you think?
No, I can't imagine you just got walking weapons walking around. Right?
Oh man. So anything else you want to say about the law firm?
What else do I want to say about the law firm? Honestly, our whole team is just incredible. Today, or with how it works now, is I handle a lot of the sales and marketing side.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's your role today?
So as we've grown and been able to slowly take little pieces off of Anthony and I, where we don't have to wear as many hats. Anthony is the CEO at the helm. I'm the vice president, where I'm doing, over sales and marketing. So I'm talking to new people that got in a crash and call with questions and need help, signing them up. And then Nate is the head of litigation. So when we can't settle with an insurance company and have to go to court, he's incredible. He's the best in Southern Utah at that for sure. And then Keegan's kind of our big claims guy, big case guy, where he just gets max value on cases. He's incredible. And our other attorneys are amazing too. Paralegal staff, we just have a really good team over there. And it allows me to be able to have peace of mind and get my mental health back together and get life back together. Cause 3 years ago, I was just not in a good place.
Yeah. How would you say your mental health is now?
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. It's been watching on the sidelines for 20 years to see what you've done is truly remarkable. And I mean that with all sincerity. And I think that your story is one. That's why I wanted you on the podcast. And we could talk for longer. We could have talked for hours and hours and hours. And I think there's so much more of the story to give. So someone out there is the Andrew 20 years ago or 15 years ago going through college. Do you have any advice for that person, or would you be available for them if they're man, I think I want to go into law? Would you be available to someone like that if there's a listener out there that feels that way?
Totally. Yeah. I'd be happy to talk to people about that. I mean, the life that I now have is so much influenced and created by surrounding myself with amazing people.
Yeah.
My family and my friends and my coworkers that I would always be more than happy if I can be. I don't know. I'm just some idiot guy. What do I know? But if anybody,
well, that's the problem, right?
Or
You don't give
advice,
yourself enough credit.
I would be, more than happy to talk with anybody about anything if I can help.
Did you ever in your wildest dreams think that you would have the financial success that you do today?
No.
Do you think part of that desire and drive was from the instability of your childhood? Do you feel like that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Is that a part of why you've been able to be so successful and why you were able to work so hard and be so driven?
Yeah. So you want to, a lot of people want to be different than their parents in some way. And if their parents are strong or weak in an area, sometimes it can push the kids to over excel in a certain area, honestly, and be good for you. And in my life, what I've wanted more than anything was stability.
Yeah.
Because we grew up, I probably lived in 20 houses by the time I graduated high school, in 8 different towns. And there was times when we were doing totally fine, but there was times that were really tight.
You and I have that similar experience. I switched schools every 2 years forever, and there were times that things were great, and there were times it was I knew I couldn't ask for shampoo,
Yeah.
It's bad.
So that is hard. And anybody that tells you, makes big money, that tells you like, oh, once you make about 300,000, it's all the same. It's not the same. Those people, those people have never, been wearing, their dad's hand-me-downs when they're 12, it's not the same. There's so many no matter what your income is, there's terrible, terrible problems in life with health.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at like
else.
your mental health struggles, even though your income was exceptional, right?
100%. Yeah. So it doesn't, solve it, but there are just certain problems where having access to that resource, you can just throw money at things and make it go away and make it easier. And so, being able to have the financial stability that I always dreamed of, or that I never even thought I would have the way that I do now is amazing.
Yeah. I can't imagine you ever thought you'd have the financial wealth you do today.
I did not.
Especially like when you're going for like communications, or you just didn't even know what you're going to do, or selling out wireless advocates, like from the arc of from there to here is truly phenomenal. And I think it's really cool for Mallory too, because you guys have been married or together for how long? It's got to be like 20 years you've been together.
Just about, yeah.
Right?
Let's see, 14.
14 married.
Yep, 14 married.
Yeah. So it's like she bet on you. You know what I mean?
Big time, when I had nothing.
Yeah, 100% bet on you. And it's unique because then, if you were to, let's say you never had a partner and you were who you are today, it'd be much more challenging to know that that person was completely committed to you 100%. Because you offer so much opportunity and abundance, right?
Yeah.
Where Mallory, not only did she bet on you, but like she provided the opportunity and the path to get to that place. And so I think it's really cool, and you can see a marriage truly be a team in that way, where she sacrificed so much to allow you to get. And you just said you're living your dream. You couldn't have lived that dream without Mallory. So I think that's really cool.
She's incredible.
Okay, so then a couple questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. But what is your biggest win in your life?
My biggest win in my life. I've got some pretty big wins. Two kind of jump to mind right off. One is there was a moment last September. So my wife has lupus and has struggled with that for 20 years. And
yeah, she got diagnosed, I think, when we were like sophomores in high school.
Yeah.
I can remember actually, like I went with her to the car wash, and she kind of broke down and was like, because it was so scary for her.
It was, terrifying. And she finally got her kidney. So her kidneys failed last year, and they're like, you need a donor, And so I want to be the donor, of course. And I'm not a match. And we had, I would say, the biggest win in my life is the guy named Ryan Lucero stepped up.
Yeah.
He went to school down at Dixie. He was most known for drinking Camelbacks full of beer. And honestly, there should be a whole lot more people like him, because he saved my family.
Yeah.
He gave Mallory his kidney. He was a match. He married Mallory's like best friend.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to tell that story of like, it's not even like he's not related to Mallory.
No, he's just married to Mallory's childhood best friend. And he was somehow like a perfect match. And last fall, he agreed to do this. We're up in Salt Lake, and we now have 2 little kids. And Mallory goes in for surgery, and that feeling is terrifying, because you don't know what can. I mean, this is putting someone else's kidney inside her to allow her body to keep functioning.
And if she didn't get a kidney, she could not have survived. Correct?
Totally.
It was either she gets a transplant, or she passes in X amount of time.
You go on dialysis, and some people can do dialysis is really hard. But people do it because they have to. But she was able to find a living donor that was willing so quickly that she's never gone on dialysis. And when she went in for surgery, though, I'm thinking like, does she wake up at all? Is there complications? Does she wake up but it's never the same? Does the kidney not take? Does her body reject it? She has this immune system that attacks her own body anyway. Now you're putting a foreign object in there. Is life never the same again? She's going to be on dialysis now. I'm not going to have this mother of my children the same. Things are going to be different. Like, was that the end of my life how it was before?
Yeah. And
I'm sitting there waiting, and the hours are just ticking. And the doctor comes in, and I just am looking at his eyes, and he goes, "She did great." I'm like, she's alive. She's coming to. Everything went perfect.
Oh, with your anxiety, I can't imagine what those couple hours were like for you.
That was victory, man. Right there. That was a win. That was like,
that's probably the best answer ever on the show.
It was sweet. There's another one though.
Oh shit. Okay.
So, because of the lupus, she's on meds where she she couldn't conceive and carry a baby healthy.
Yeah.
And so that left us having to explore some options, and it was kind of a long road for us to have a family that we wanted. And we decided to adopt and had a profile up on adoption.com, and you're just kind of sitting back waiting because you're waiting on an expectant birth mother to basically pick you, and you're at the mercy. And we get a call from an adoption agency that says, this is a strange situation that doesn't happen much, but we had an expectant birth mother walk in our office with a printout of your profile on adoption.com and say, get me these people to be the parents of my baby.
Where was that person at? Like regionally? Was that in Utah or?
Utah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, not St. George. Yeah. And we ended up, that's my son, Fitz.
So she going into labor at that time, or she was just like
soon? She's a couple months out, so it happened pretty quick. And we ended up being able to talk to her once on the phone. It's a closed adoption, but she was like,
what does that mean, closed adoption?
Meaning like we don't have contact with birth parents.
Oh, okay. So
after delivery.
Wow. So you've never talked to her since? Never will?
No. So like we took our babies home, both of them, right from the hospital. Like they're.
And what if she does want to speak to the kids down the road? Does that?
So we would totally we love her. She like did something for us that we couldn't do for ourselves, which is just like Ryan. Like these people, birth mothers are like just the best people in the whole world because they're doing something they don't even want to do it. They're doing it for the baby, not for you, not for me. They're doing it for the baby. It's just incredible what these people do. But sorry, what was the question I got? So if because it's closed, so you can't reach out to her, but what if in time she wanted to reach out to Fitz, or like if Fitz wanted to find her, is that like a thing that can happen? Totally. Yeah. It closed and once once an adoption goes through, like the birth parents, they lose, all parental rights. So so there's no possible way for the birth parent to try to like force contact or but like we would we love these people. Open to so we would, and also like we're totally transparent with our kids and always will be. And so like if they wanted to reach out or if birth parents wanted to reach, like we would always be fully supportive. And so Fitz is, what is he, 5 or 6? He's 5. And does he know, or like, is that too young for him? He knows he's adopted. He does. I mean, I think at that age, you're struggling to grasp what that means. But from the time that he was an infant child, we would whisper to him his story about how, your mom and dad loved you so much and wanted to have a baby, and mom couldn't carry you in her tummy. And then along came the most special woman in the world called Birth Mama, and she carried you in her tummy, and we prayed and prayed, and God brought you here to us. And Birth Mom made that possible. And so we tell him that still all the time. He knows. Okay, so there's not it's not like he's going to be 14 and figure it out. You guys have been fully open. We tell him like, you're lucky, you're special, because being adopted means that we actually wanted you. Like half your friends there probably, like we had to fight to get you. That's how much we love you. Yeah, that's great. But they're just, and how cool for the birth parents too, to know that they're the kids that they brought to this world ended up in such an incredible home, and we're going to have such great lives. I hope so. I mean, we're trying. I mean, that's definitely my primary driver in life. These kids are like just so much beyond like what anything that I could have created with my DNA. We're just lucky. And so, question then, part of your success was driven from lack thereof in your childhood, and so are you concerned at all for? Like, how do you best set your kids up to have the best life they can have when you have the ability to provide it all to them? I don't know. Have you thought about what that looks like? Yeah, totally. I'm a little worried about it. I think sometimes you grow up soft when you get babied and spoiled. Well, and it's like they have everything they could have. Like, they will never be without. They're always going to have these amazing things. There are people that do it right. There are families that grow up wealthy and still instill character and values in their kids, to where the next generation, they just, they make an even more beautiful life, whether, financially and otherwise. Right. And so I don't know though. I need to learn those tricks. I mean, I want to think that I'm a good parent, but I've got a ton to learn. Yeah, because they're young enough now, but it's like, when do you start to instill those? Even for like my kids, like we stayed at a DoubleTree and they were like, this is gross. And it's like, it's not, guys, it's not gross, And I don't want them to feel that way. And like, I remember going to a basketball game with my dad. We'd buy like the 10-game pass to the Nuggets, and we were just like up in the top, Yeah. And I remember looking at a box and being like, one day I'll sit in there. Yeah. And now I own season tickets in a box, That's awesome. And so, which is such an incredible feeling for me. And I love taking my kids and sharing that experience with them. Yeah. But then that's what they think basketball games are. Yep.
you know? And so it's like, do I really just like go sit at the top with them because now they just be like, I don't want to sit up here, Dad. Like, let's
It's
go.
going to be good for your daughter because then she's going to be like not impressed by some scrub that comes along.
right.
But for the boys, I don't know. That's that could be hard.
You know, like what's the balance of like, you want to give your kids these things we didn't have,
Yeah.
but then how do we make sure they still have the drive for those things?
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at it. Yeah, I don't have advice.
I'm
on
sure,
that
you
because,
spoil the shit out of them.
I got a lot to learn.
I remember going to your house that one time to watch the Nuggets and the Jazz, and Fitz had all of his toys out, and he had basically every toy in the history of mankind, you know?
He deserves every last one of them.
Okay, so then what's your biggest loss?
Man, what's my biggest loss? Honestly, the mental health breakdown, Adderall dependency,
Yeah, I thought that's what you'd say.
was probably my biggest blow or setback in life. It took probably honestly a year and a half for me to start to feel like myself again after going off it, because it totally rewires like your dopamine receptors.
Yeah.
So I'm like going through.
So it's like, how do you get joy if now like
like nothing's fun, nothing's interesting anymore, because now my brain wants the Adderall and doesn't have it, and it, you're just lethargic. You're just a shadow person, just a shell of your former self for quite a long time. That was really hard, having to go through all these different antidepressants to try to find the right mix to like help me come out of it and go into therapy
and you're not naturally, you're not a depressed person. You're a very fun person. I would never.
I thought I was, yeah. I mean, it was a dark couple of years, but yeah. I mean, I feel a lot better now.
Are you still on medication for like depression now?
Yeah.
Do you think you have to be on that for the rest of your life now?
I don't think so, because I've improved so much, but I'm kind of like just putting it off, like trying going off of it.
Yeah.
Because I've come so far that I'm like, well,
you don't want to go backwards at all.
Yeah, totally. But I probably will eventually come off it and see if I'm like back to old Andrew that I used to be, or if I still need some help.
Oh, I mean, so obviously you're using it now, but I would say that you're fully back. Like you're the Andrew you always were.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. I hope I am.
Yeah, it's not. None of that like that darkness exists. I don't feel anymore at all, which is great.
Awesome.
Okay, so then you read Winning the Moment, right? Mm-hmm. So what was your favorite part, biggest takeaway, or anything that stuck out to you?
I think honestly, the parts that stick out to you is that I mentioned in the book, right? The greatest sound in the English language is the sound of your own name, right? So, but really, what I enjoyed the most about the book was that I've been so in and out of your life at all these different times over the last 20 years that like a lot of the stories I would know other details or backstory.
Sure.
And so I loved it, like Outliers.
Yeah, because you introduced me to Outliers.
Yeah, and so like I remember, and Outliers obviously had a pretty big influence on you.
Yeah,
and it huge, profound influence on me. And I remember like that summer in Phoenix, like telling you like, oh, I read this.
You were at the pool. I remember there was like that cemented like picnic table. You were at the pool reading, just as you just barely said. That's what you used to do. And I'd come over to hang out, and you're like, dude, this book is like mind blowing.
Yeah, stuff like that was cool because there were so many good stories in there that are applicable, and it was just fun to be like, oh, I remember these other details too.
Yeah,
that kind of made it unique for me amongst the other books. But
and then, so what would be the most impactful book that you've ever read?
I would say probably How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's one of the few books that I'll go back and read again and again.
I say the same thing. That's the one book that I'm willing to read multiple times.
Yeah, I would say, probably that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, so then the last question, this is the one I think to be the most important, and I'm really excited to hear your answer, but how do you define success?
So success is winning, whatever the objective is, right? So like for me, my primary like role in my life that I want and care about is to be a husband and father, and so it's to protect and provide. And so to me, that's success now, right? Because that's who I am. Whereas when I was working at Buckle, success was, getting a date with a girl or winning flag football at intramurals at the college.
Yeah. Being the best flag football team at college was success.
That was like, that's all. Yeah. I cared about that more than anything at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Or fantasy football, suddenly when our firm has grown and, kind of work consumed my life, suddenly I suck at fantasy football. I used to think I was sweet, I think as your objective changes, success, changes a lot. But today for me, success is mostly financial, to provide.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think it's so important to share with the audience that success is fluid and it's going to change so many times throughout your life. I don't know when I realized that, but I didn't believe that when I was young. Like my answer of what is success 20 years ago, if we were talking, it would have been tied to a monetary number.
Totally.
If I can just make this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You were always pretty money driven.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Even like early, like in high school.
Yeah.
More so than myself, I would say.
Yeah, I think it was, I had an unhealthy relationship with money, right? Because my parents, kind of what you said, like it came and went. And so I just didn't ever want to be in that cycle.
Yeah.
And so that created, it's kind of like, I guess kind of like Adderall for you, where it created a lot of really good positives in my life, but it also had some negative side effects too, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm still working on that relationship even now.
Yeah.
You know, it'll always be a struggle.
Yeah, totally. I get that.
So I think before we wrap up, we should probably let the audience know that in our fantasy football league, you can draft keepers. And so if you pay $5 or $15, you get to keep them. And everyone knows I love the Broncos. And I'm not very good at fantasy football. I don't ever win, ever. Never even really been competitive. Just really trying to watch the players I like. And
just trying to have a good time.
Yeah, I opted to draft Jerry Jeudy, who was hurt. So I thought no one will bust me because no one knows what his injury is. And I'm just going to get him for $15 and be great. And Andrew thought it appropriate to bid $16 and take that away from me.
I did. And I feel really bad about it. In my defense, it backfired on me because now I'm stuck with him.
Yeah.
He was foisted upon me, but I also didn't even think I was busting you. I thought I was busting Zach.
And
Zach is dirty. He's won the league more than anybody.
Yeah.
He's a very good fantasy football mind.
You were doing it for the people when you thought you were busting Zach.
I was trying to do my part. The draft had gone well. I'm like, everybody's taking their turns. Rio and Casey are busting everybody, doing me all these favors. So I'm like,
they did the
let
Lord's
me bust
work.
Zach here. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. Anything you want to leave the audience with, like if they want to find you, or if or if they need help, if they've been into an accident, or they've been through what's the time frame that someone can wait? Like, what if I got in a wreck a year ago?
Yeah, so we can still help you. So Utah's a 4-year statute of limitations.
Okay.
Definitely, like, you're going to want to call right after your accident, ideally, because there's all these pitfalls along the way where you can already screw over your case and give the insurance company all this ammunition against you. So the earlier the better. But even if someone in an accident a year or two ago, we can typically still help them. McMullinInjuryLaw.com. Just give us a call.
And what if they don't live in Utah? Can you guys only practice in Utah?
So we're licensed in Utah, Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, but probably 90% of our work that we do is for people that are in southern Utah.
Okay, but if a listener's listening in one of those states, you guys can help them.
100%.
Okay, well, hey, man, I love you. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Likewise, man. Love you too. Thanks for having me.